Everyone, welcome back and welcome to the podcast. It's been what about a week, 2 weeks, kind of, and then
Yeah.
we experimented also trying live streaming from the show floor. Uh, Obviously, it didn't work as exactly as planned. We got maybe 5 minutes before the network
Yeah.
just crashed in and put on a. But welcome back, as what I'm gonna say. I'm Josh. That's Al, and welcome to the podcast, everyone. Each week, Al and I get together and we talk about risk. We talk about security, safety in security, whether it be cyber, operational, or physical security. Um, Al and I got to hang out a lot, not by the pool, unfortunately, but we spent a lot of time together.
Yeah. Got a lot of steps in at ISC West.
So that tan that Al has is not from actually from Vegas, but it's
No,
from him relaxing and decompressing at the beach,
that's right.
and
Right.
rightfully so. But Al, oh my gosh, you just mentioned the numbers. This for ISC West 2025, 34,000 plus people in attendance on day one. By
Day
the way.
one. Yeah.
I think the numbers last year, if I'm not mistaken, was something along the lines of 26,000, I think, by show closing.
Yeah. Total attendance.
Yeah.
And it's usually a 4-day show. So you roughly, if you rough math about 5,000 a day, if we know that's not how shows work, but if we did rough math and we nearly, we nearly blew that out the water. Day one,
One.
day one.
Day one.
Um, it was, I think everyone who I talked to who was there, we were all kind of like, wow, there's a ton of people here. So a ton of people. The floor itself was bigger. There were definitely more displays and booths this year than last year. Um, but I can tell you, like, day one, I drove by the what I say I drove the Uber drove by, and I saw people like lined up around the corner trying to get in. And I just told the Uber, you know what? I'm just gonna update the ride. We're just gonna go get breakfast, and I'm not even gonna worry about trying to get in right now because this looks like absolute madness. I was told, I wasn't there, but I was told the fire marshal had to get involved in the Venetian because the escalators were backing up because they couldn't flow enough people into the conference room in the Venetian, or into the show floor in the Venetian, and so the escalators were just jam packed with people, and they couldn't get off the escalators because there was no place to go once you got to the top of the escalator. So they actually had to shut down the escalators for a minute, let people flow in, bar entry for people to getting in. They had to stop people from coming in so they could flow enough people in and out. And then I think 15, 20 minutes later, they restarted the escalators and slowly started flowing more people in. But it was, from an attendance perspective, absolutely phenomenal showing across the industry. So that's good because I think ISC West has always been kind of like the little brother to GSX traditionally. And now I think we might be seeing that shift, right?
I think it has shifted. Like my first GSX was in 2019. I felt it was ISC West was the bigger show already than GSX, and of course, then COVID happened. But
Yeah, yeah.
and I haven't been to
I think
GSX
the last
since.
few years there's been kind of a shift away from GSX to ISC West. And then there's been some ASIS drama the last couple years too, which hasn't helped the situation. But I also think the industry, various industries there's been a big appetite for technological solutions. And unfortunately, GSX, the technology suites that I've seen at GSX just don't, it seems to be like the same vendors every year. There's not a lot of new stuff coming out. There's not a lot of stuff pushing the line there. Um,
No innovation.
right. And so I think ISC West the last few years has really been kind of like the place to be, my personal opinion. Um, and I've actually enjoyed the ISC West shows way more than the GSX shows. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah. One regret though, I didn't hear Sandra sing this time because I missed the invite to the.
we didn't get that, but we still had fun. I mean, we still had a lot of fun. So
Yeah.
that was good.
So anyway, so this is our post debrief show, post ISC West. Al and I did record something live. We tried it out. We visited one of the new product solution folks, a group called Spot AI. So
Yep.
we'll post that up after the show. It'll be raw, unedited, mainly because we want you to have the real unedited experience. But we talk about Spot AI, and then leave some feedback too for that too as well. We want to hear you if it's something like you guys like. Maybe Al and I will do a bigger coverage next year. Again, a
Yeah.
lot of prototyping ideas, seeing how you guys liked everything,
I
and
mean, we could even invite them to the podcast, see if Spot will talk. I mean, they were, I mean, and to their credit, I mean, they had no issue with us recording them, having them talk about the technology.
yeah,
Uh, and if you're a Spot AI user, if like you're a customer of theirs, we'd love to hear your feedback, your thoughts. I was pretty impressed with the modularity. And I won't give everything away because I know we recorded a bunch of stuff, but I think that there's been, from the security systems perspective, a lot of people are not looking for a out of the box solution that covers 80%, 85% of their problems. They're looking for something that can be custom tailored to their specific issues and specific needs, especially for the price point. And I think that in itself made Spot really appealing, or will make them extremely appealing for a lot of customers.
yeah, and I really like the. This is my second year judging NPS, the new product solutions. I saw, some old stuff, but there was quite a few new things this year
Yeah.
that I was like, oh, this is really innovative. I really, really enjoy it. And like, one of the things that we saw was that, uh, what was that company called? It was Zeitin. I forgot what it was called, but they had the non-metal based
The non-metallic, yeah.
non-metallic
Password, right. Metal detect.
yeah,
Well, yeah.
threat detection
Threat
for
detection.
ceramic knives or 3D printed knives and objects and guns. Not perfect by any means, but way better than anything I've actually seen today
Yeah.
on the market. So even me being the red teamer, you remember how I just stuffed the ceramic knife in my
And
front.
red team, you did. Red team, you did. You definitely threw their engineer for a loop a few times, which is great. I mean, honestly, better at ISC West than at a customer site, right? So, and just so y'all know, Josh was just being Josh, just walking through, doing what he does, and he found a way to break this great new technology that won an award, which I thought was awesome. I was like, "Wow, look at that!" So,
Yeah, but in truthfulness, when you apply to the standard use cases, it worked brilliantly.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
But my red teaming came in and kicked in. All right, let's just try a different way. Let's change the
Yeah.
profile, and then move. It broke the model pretty quickly.
Well, and you just so you carry quite a few cell phones just due to your various roles, and so you just put three cell phones in your pocket just because it was convenient at the time,
Yeah,
and you walk through, and
I
they're
had
like,
two wallets
"Wow,
because I had my travel wallet and my normal wallet with me too. So I had
yeah,
all this stuff in my pockets plus a knife in front, and it confuzzled the
yeah." It's like three cell phones. That's one too many now. Easy. Nobody does that, So that was good to see, I mean, and they were, and look, to their credit, they were like all about the feedback, and they're like, thank you for the for doing that, because now we know we gotta adjust the settings and reiterate. Cool, good on them. It's and
Yeah.
they were pretty upfront with us. Like, they're like, it's not perfect by any means, but it is a better sensor than most out there. So they were pretty upfront about it, and we appreciate that.
Yeah. And, by all means, I wouldn't just use that solo. I would probably do a couple other things, in between, like
Right.
forcing, like, maybe a magnetometer in the front, that, or, something, but there's at least, there's a degree of a barrier that confuses people at this point, because you don't know what is what unless you're in the industry. So
Right, right.
that just adds, defenses upon defenses, and it just shifts, a lot of things away, because now people are trying to figure out, where is what and at what degree and at what level. So,
And
all I can
it
say
was
is
pretty
I'm
modular.
excited.
That unit was pretty modular as well. I mean, it can roll away and, really, I think their primary use case was event security. But I mean, everything that they showed us, the modularity of it, the ability for it to just, you could just set it up really quickly. You could transport it really quickly. It made a lot of sense. And what it does do well, detecting where on the body potentially something is, to give you a secondary screening, did that extremely well.
Yeah. And, I like it because it was innovative. It was a new approach. It actually solves some new problems and challenges that we, have to face in the industry. How to, detect 3D printed weapons. Like, that is a huge challenge. And again, not perfect, but it is also at the same time progress,
Right.
significant, huge progress, and that's what I appreciated it.
Yeah.
So I saw that as, as part of the judging, and I was one of the judges for that solution. So I saw that as I knew it right there. That is the right thing to do, because it is literally solving a problem that we don't have a solution yet for, because everything is based off, magnetometers, off of disruption of magnetic fields,
Right.
something brand new, and that excited me hugely. So it's like, this year, last year was my first year doing NPS. This year is my second year. Truly, that was really, for me, it was a game changer at that point, because it was attempting to solve a real life problem that everyone who's doing detection of weapons is facing. And, short of you having one of those, TSA giant scanners where you do this and do the millimeter wave,
Yeah.
which are way more expensive.
Well, and it's not practical for, like, we talk about like event security, a sporting event, a concert, a music venue. You're you're not going to have the time to run everyone through a wave millimeter scanner like they do with TSA, and then check and see what's on their body or what it is. I mean, there's just, from a time management perspective and all that, you just, that's not realistic for a lot of event security. But this was very, for the price point, for the capability, and the ability to set it up. I mean, I think it was definitely a really good solution.
And what I love about it too, it was capable of doing high volume as well.
Right. Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And
Like,
that's another thing, right? It's time to scan, and how long it takes you to get a person in and out safely, and probably well, I don't know, after your little red team stunt, but they were saying somewhere in the 86% range of accuracy. So pretty good comparative to some of the other systems that I've seen, which, I mean, some of the systems that some of these companies are using at places. I mean, we're talking like low 50%, you know success rate, or
yeah.
and you're like, what? That's
Well,
what we're working with. So
well, if you think about it too, I mean, everything I've seen so far today, it is 0% detection rate on
yeah,
ceramic
3D printed
knives and
guns.
plastic
Yeah,
guns
yeah,
that's being printed.
absolutely,
So, even if it's 50% detection of those, I would say that is a very high success rate, right
absolutely.
there, because that's a significant improvement in my book. That is a huge, significant improvement.
Yeah,
Uh, so I'm, like I said, I'm really looking forward to it, and it sounds like they're also doing some cool deployments all around here in Southern California as well. So I'm really looking forward to, using that, because God, I hate, and my emphasis hate, I hate having to explaining myself, like, you know, I don't have this, I don't have that, or my belt freaking sets off everything, and I'm having to get wanded to death at that point, or, massaged
yep.
in weird places.
The back of the palm, right? The back of the palm.
Yeah. So yeah. What else caught your eye this year as well?
So I did notice that there was a lot of tower companies, security tower companies, more so than I've seen in the past. And I know for a fact that there's still more that just didn't showcase, but that did attend. And I met with a few. And I would say that, I think that the industry in general is trending towards more technology. I said that before, but I think the remote monitoring, the remote camera systems, the, technological solutions for like parking lots or empty lots or, vacant buildings. There seems to be a lot more appetite to embrace that right now. And from what we're seeing just across the board, there's several labor shortages in various different industries right now. I think this is the industry's way of kind of solving that problem for labor shortages. Additionally, I think that there's just more of an appetite. So a lot of this technology has improved quite a bit, even since last year. I think last year I saw like two tower companies. I think about eight this go around of various different configurations and models and on-site power or plug-in capability, just various different types. And I was actually typically with the technology stuff, like the tower specifically, they don't typically have the bigger booths. This year, there were several tower companies that had pretty significant booths, which, just anyone who doesn't understand conferences, you're every square foot of a booth, you're paying a lot of money for, right? So when you have a rather large booth, rather large display, clearly it's an indication of a significant investment by the company to be there and showcase their product. And I definitely can say that there was a lot of that I saw.
And
Um,
position too. A
and
lot of them were actually not
correct,
even in the back.
prime
They
positioning.
were they were like mid show floor. They've moved up in front of places too as well.
Like LBT had a huge booth, huge display out there, right in the middle. And they had, I mean, they had paid these I'm gonna say it, rather attractive models to dress as burglars and
I
walk
did
around
not see that.
and spot, and you use the LBT camera system to spot them and find out where they're at throughout the floor. Pretty cool. But we haven't seen, previous shows, we haven't really seen a lot of that with security towers. Primarily they'll just have the unit on display, but LVT was letting you like pivot the camera, go find them in the crowd. These burglars, they were dressed in this green and white striped burglar outfit, and they were just walking around, and you put in the description and boom, there it is, right? So definitely a lot of that. And I think a lot of people are looking at the towers as a solution. I know from my customer engagement with a lot of my customers, there's definitely a lot of talk about that. Like, how do we, if we're moving to remote sites, or we're reducing manpower across the board, or we just can't staff certain sites. Can we augment with a tower to support the guys that are there? And I think that is becoming more of a reality. I think we're going to see a lot more of this technology pushed out there as the labor situation just kind of works itself out.
Yeah. And one of the things I also noticed this year was there was a huge increase in drone detection companies.
Yes,
There
yes.
was a lot more this year. Though one, I have a partial favorite only because of a friend who's there working. So of course I'm gonna support his company. But yeah, he was. There's a lot of these companies out there. Like I was going. There's a way more drone detection. So I think a lot more people are thinking, from a technological perspective, it's not just guns, guards, and gates. It's now have air concerns
Yeah,
that
yeah. And that's
I
something
can't
that we
just shoot in
typically,
the air and take it down.
yeah, I mean, that's something that we typically haven't had to deal with a lot in the physical space, simply because the technology, the drone technology just wasn't really there to really cause that big of a investment. But we saw a lot of counter drone stuff. We talked to the guys at Robin, I believe the Robin unit, and great conversation. I mean, they were involved with some of the drone detection out in the Northeast later in the year, last year, 2024, when all the drone sightings were happening. And he gave us some great stats on, they were able to track multiple movements and confirm the big thing was they were able to confirm that there were no drones flying in the areas they had deployed the Robin, and that was pretty cool to see that, I mean, even just from the information perspective of like you don't have any drones flying, that was cool. We were able to talk to some other guys as well. Their name eludes me right now, but they were showing us, their platforms on drone detection and being able to identify where the originator of the signal's coming from. So you see the drone, and that's important to know where the drone is, but you really got to understand where the operator is and how far out they're flying it, and if you need to engage law enforcement, you can give law enforcement a specific location to go check out. And that was something that I previously hadn't seen on a wide scale level, especially not at ISC West where they were openly kind of displaying it and showing it. So I think that the I don't know if it was solely just the situation in the Northeast, but I think that there's been a lot of talk about drones are here to stay. How do we know what's happening in our airspace, and how do we defend against potential issues that could happen, right? So
Right. And I think that's the other cool thing too is, there are people who are starting to have these conversations to say, hey, it isn't just traditional security. We have to respond now to technological driven threats
yeah,
and risks. And so, here it is. We have to deal with them. So, that was really, really cool too. I also did see some also cool transitional technology too as well. Mobile credentialing seems to be a big,
yeah,
big, huge this year. I saw some from like Biofinity or Bioflex, I forgot what it's called. I saw some HID had that new portable,
they did. Yep.
reader. That was cool too as well. Though my concern with the HID one, it just seems to be more a transitional technology versus something that you would adopt. If you're going to be, granted, it's like only a couple $100, great. It serves like a good transition, but man, you must as well just go, jump full in at this point. just,
Yeah, yeah.
just have a transitional technology, and then you have this little like widget here. Then you just throw in the bottom of your tech best basket of stuff that, yeah, it was great for $20. Now I don't need it anymore.
Right, right. Yeah, I mean, I think we saw quite a bit of that. I think it's interesting about the transitional technology. I think the market conditions. Typically what I see at trade shows is they're showcasing products that they want to either launch or promote throughout the year, right? To help generate sales and revenue from a business perspective. And it's smart to do that because you got a lot of customers in one place and you kind of showcase different technologies at once. I'm thinking like my thought on that, because I agree with you. There was a lot of transitional technology. Is I think the market conditions right now are such that people are skittish about doing a full investment on a new technology suite. And so the transitional technologies help still move a program forward without a full, commitment of, 2 to 3 to 5 years potentially, depending on what technology you're trying to put in, right? So which kind of makes me wonder about next year, like what cool gizmos are we going to see that probably could have been launched this year, but they just were like, yeah, I don't know if the market can handle it right now given current economic conditions.
Yeah, and that's kind of the curious thing. Like, someone for myself, I have a very rip the band-aid off approach to some technologies, and this one was, mobile credentialing. It kind of hit that category. Just rip the band-aid off.
Yeah,
Doing that transitional approach. Don't get me wrong, and maybe this is because of my experience doing software development and dealing with software, and the so-called iterative, not iterative, iterative slash agile approach of things. You're trying to convert like a Datsun into a Porsche, as my friend one time pointed out to me. But at some point, you have to also remember this car has to be road legal, has to be functional and driving, and you have to use it every day. But at some point, it ceases to be either, and all the while, all you're doing is adding more complexity to it, trying
Right.
to
Right.
make both. It doesn't work that way. At some point, you have to start clean, because if you don't start clean, all the bolts and everything you add just adds way more headaches for you in the long run. And I'm to this day I'm very mindful of his analogy of that. Thanks, Kier, by the way, if you're ever watching this. uh and mobile technology is one of those same things too. You're going from a traditional physical badge to a mobile device badge, but you can't half bake it, because at some point you're just not pleasing either side, and all you're doing is adding friction to both sides, and all you're doing is agitating people at that point.
And then there's the management aspect. People lose the device. People, you know, forget it in the building, and now they can't get in anywhere. And they got to go. Like you've got there are a ton of trade offs when it comes to any technology, right? But to your point, sometimes it's like I see what you're trying to do here. I see there's probably somebody who has a need for it. Like, let me know when you get to the full solution, and then give me a call, right?
Yeah, yeah, and don't get me wrong. I know there's some businesses that have to do it only because like you're a size of an Amazon or a Google or a Facebook, where you actually have to do multiple sites. Well, you have to support both at the same time. Don't get me wrong. There's a need for that,
Right.
but for the average, I think, business, unless you're the size of some massive behemoth, you probably should just just rip the band off right now and just go all in and just do a quick deployment and everything like that. Yes, you need a test and all that stuff. I get it, but you may as well just, do it right the first time around in my book.
Yeah. Yeah. Saves money in the long run.
And headaches and
Yes.
buy-in and training and maintenance and all that jazz. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, from the cyber side, did you see anything that struck out to you?
Nothing big on the cyber side, but I'm not surprised on that. But I did have a session. Day one. It's literally first time they added and start off the sessions on Monday instead of Tuesday. And that was, my room was packed, by the way. I had a lunchtime session, first session of the day, which is difficult because that means people like, oh, it's lunchtime.
Yeah,
Oh,
they're dozing off or on their phone.
and I can be late. People, maybe traveling instead of, traditionally Sunday, travel traditionally on the Monday. But I had, I think, 100 something people in my room, standing room. Apparently my room was set for 85 people, but majority of the seats were filled, and there were a lot of people standing in the back wall too as well. So a good 100 people, and we even ran 5 minutes over. And we still had people, lingering around. Majority of the people lingering around. Maybe only a small handful of people left. So I would say amazing turnout. And for those of you listen to the podcast and who showed up for my session, thank you. I may not know you, but thank you for dropping my
Yeah.
session. It was
Thank you.
amazing.
We
Yeah.
appreciate both of us collectively appreciate that.
Yeah. So that was amazing. I would say it was an amazing turnout there.
I will definitely say over the last year, so I do about between 12 and 15 panel discussions a year. Sometimes more depending on my schedule. But I will say that the engagement in the security realm, both cyber and physical, has definitely grown quite a bit, because I remember 2 years ago doing um, panel discussions on physical security and convergence and things like that. And it was crickets. People were on their phones. We had to kind of like keep it very light and joke a lot to keep people engaged. And probably over the last 6 or 7 months, there has been a lot of engagement, a lot of questions. Like we would literally do these panels, no questions. Like nobody like, thank you for your talk on security. I don't care. I'm more concerned about power and resourcing and staffing. I whatever. I got a security
Yeah.
guy for that. Now, I mean, we get a ton of engagement on panels that I do. A lot of questions. I gotta be on my toes, because somebody never fails. Always asks me a question that has me scratching my head. Like, I didn't think about that, man. I really got to figure out what I'm going to say here so I don't put my foot in my mouth. But I mean, I think just overall in general, I think people are becoming more aware, waking up to the fact that like everything that they do, there has to be some type of security function behind it, whether, it's physical, cyber, both. Um, and it's good. It's great to see because I think, you know, for a long time, two things were happening, right? One, security guys were kind of just staying in their lane, not engaging people, just doing their job and going home and not really kind of educating other aspects of a business of why they're important. And then, there's always been other, obviously private sector, right? You've got to make money. Let's not kid ourselves here. Businesses have to generate revenue or they cease to exist, right? So there's always a lot of focus on the revenue generation. But what I've seen in the last, several months is that people recognize now that risk to the business is very important factor that they have to mitigate, and primarily that comes from the cyber and the physical side, right? um, and with everything going on in the world and how crazy things have gotten, globally, not just here in the US, but globally, there is a lot more, like I should say, renewed interest in like, okay, how do I design something? How do I do something? How do I do this and keep everyone safe and, reduce the impact of the business? So if something goes sideways, I don't lose my operations completely.
Yeah, it was actually kind of funny you brought that up. I had one attendee in my session also attended my session last year. By the way, thank you for coming back. I'm not gonna say their name because I don't think I have permission to use their name, and I think they want to stay anonymous. But they came back and cornered me afterwards, like, "Hey, guy," and they went, literally, Josh, like, thank you. Like, the advice you gave me last year, I was able to put to practice, and it's made a huge difference, in how I talk with people and how I approach them. I was like, that's just awesome. It made me feel like really, really awesome, about everything that we talked about last year and continue that conversation this year too as well. So that was, to your point, convergence is happening, and people who are jumping on board, it's actually making them much more successful in their careers, and talking with senior management, executive management, and building those bridges with the cyber people. And it's enabling their success, and as clearly here, it is enabling success. I'm not expecting like a revolutionary change overnight, but that small shift has made his job way easier. That's the cool thing. And
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
you see that, then for me as a speaker, as someone who's a business person, as someone who's always looking to support and enable the business, you know that is awesome, because now you're getting the point. Now you're having the conversations you need to get. Now you're getting the financial and political support to enable your success. So that was really, really cool to see. And it isn't just me talking theory; it is an application of what I've been preaching the last couple of years. You're here to support and enable the business.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, and I think, just the attendee numbers themselves kind of, reinforce all these points of there are more people, you know, coming to the conference every year, year over year. There's been significant attendance growth. And I think people are starting to, understand that, we have to, mitigate that risk. So whatever our business functions are, whatever our business processes are, we have to figure out a way to mitigate the risk. Um, given, I'm going to bring that to economic conditions. Given the economic conditions, I think a lot of the companies that traditionally, had a high risk appetite, that appetite has gone down quite a bit, where they're like, okay, wait a second, we really need to figure this out because we just cannot afford to be too loose in our security. I had a lot of great conversations with a few business owners about like, yeah, like we potentially want to sell this year. We want to go public. That's what our thoughts are. But we realize, if we do the audit, or if we fill out the paperwork with the government to go public, and we got to get a handle on like our inventory. We have to understand how much we got. We understand where people are going, what we're tracking. We've got to present the best picture available. And we realized after doing our own internal review, man, our security, both cyber and physical, we have neglected that, for the sake of product management, marketing, and sales, which is not uncommon. Which, like, let's be honest, it's not uncommon. But I'm glad a lot of people are waking up to that. Like, hey, you know what? It makes good financial sense to have good security, good investment in cyber and physical programs, because without that, I mean, the overall risk profile of your company, is it's in question, right? It's like, well, wait a second, like one bad cyber attack, you guys are done. Like, like, do I really want to take you on? Do I really want to buy you and invest in you? So I think those questions are being asked now, which is good because I mean, traditionally, you know, it might have come out in the SEC audit filing before you go public. Somebody would come through and do an ISO 27001 review and be like, yeah, you need X, Y, and Z, man. You don't even have a security manager. You don't have a secure container. Like, get this done and we'll let you go public, right? Um,
Yeah.
but now it's like people are being proactive about it, and that's really nice to see.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. I agree with there. Yeah, so nothing on cyber. I didn't see anything else on the technological side that is really what I call revolutionary. But I did see quite a few evolutionary products that,
Yeah.
were kind of cool. I don't get me wrong. They're really solid. You can see the product, it's responding to the risks as well as the customer feedback. Like I saw quite a few of those products and solutions that are on the show floor. Nothing really stood out to me, so I'm not going to name any of them. But I will say there was, quite a few I could say, oh yeah, I remember seeing this last year, and here's the evolution of that same technology and product. So that was, really nice to see.
I saw just, kind of similar vein. I didn't see there wasn't anything that like jumped out at me, that was like hadn't seen before, uh except for one, which is it's a product. I'm trying to I'm scrolling through my pictures to get the name here, but it's a product that most people will probably never use. But it was just so funny and so fun. Let me see if I can find it here. That I just thought it was. I laughed when I saw it, and even their display was awesome. And I would love to have like one or two of them on my house.
It,
It's
it wasn't
called
a robot drowning itself, right?
it wasn't. It's called paintball marking guard,
Huh?
and it's just awesome, man. It like, so from a physical security, corporate security perspective, yeah, you're probably never gonna see this on a building. But it's essentially it's a camera. It's typical like PTZ camera, right? Um, with a motion detector, which goes into an AI platform, which it feeds into. It looks for coyotes, um, like stray cats, dogs, whatever, and it's got a paintball marker attached to it on a gimbal, so it rotates, and it's got thermal too, right? So if a coyote or a varmint animal is coming onto your property or something like that, it'll take shots, not directly to hit it, but close to it to make it scurry away. Again, not practical really for corporate security by any means, but home security. This thing was awesome. I mean, they had this big coyote, banner.
Display.
It had the targets on it, and it looked like a predator. I mean, it was great. To like, I'm like, everyone's thinking it. Some guy put it together and he's marketing it and he's trying to sell it. And good on him, man. I mean, I think like there's probably some places in the U.S. where you can get away with that at mounted on your house. I mean, the insurance bill is probably insane, but
Well,
I
I
mean,
mean, if you're trying to, I mean, I look at it from this way, not from like a life safety of a human, but life safety of your pets.
yeah, yeah,
That is worthwhile. That's a worthwhile investment in my book, because it's like maybe what, $1,000, but it's, it's your
I mean,
dog, it's your pet cat. You want to do
right.
everything to protect your fur baby.
Well, and if you're, like I got coyotes in my neighborhood, right? So if I'm not home, right, and my girlfriend's dogs run around in the backyard, uh, and we're not home, there's not much we can do, right? But the big, the big kind of corporate security question that we always have to contend with on the physical side is like we may have monitoring, right? We may be able to see a threat, identify a threat, but what action can we actually put against the threat, right? What authorities do we have as corporate security to actually engage the threat, right? Whether it be an animal, whether it be a human, whether it be a drone. So that but there are a lot of jurisdictions in the United States where protection of property, protection of pets, the life of a pet, you can use physical force to defend, right?
Yeah.
So
Just
this
not
thing is
just not lethal force though.
right. Well, and that's the thing. This is a non-lethal, technically non-lethal system. So I just thought it was great, man. It put a chuckle on my face. I was like, that's awesome, man. Somebody did it.
Yeah, there's a part of me that wonders now if I can buy like a whole bunch of paintball fields, just put this there, and you can do like a, human versus machine
Yeah.
paintball game.
Bring back, robot American gladiators from back in the day, man.
You're like bang, or actually no, I have an idea. We can use it paintball version of Squid Games.
Yeah. There you go. There you go. That's probably a better reference, Squid Game. And probably more people will understand that than American Gladiators, but American Gladiators was awesome. I said it. Fight me.
I agree. American Gladiators was awesome. It was the OG show,
That's right. That's right.
of prowess, athleticism, and wits and smarts,
That's
with
right. That's right.
with a bit of was it ingenuity, creativeness, and a lot of tenacity.
Yeah, that's right. But yeah, that was that was just a fun technology I saw that I was just like, great, awesome. It stood out to me. I hope those guys do really well. I hope their
I'll
stuff.
take them back.
Yeah, I'm sure I know there's several markets in the United States that would definitely embrace that technology if it's at the right price point.
Gosh,
So,
actually, now I want to go see if I can, what I can do with that.
yeah, well, I'll put the link in the post so everyone can take a look at them.
Ah,
And I hope at the very least give them some trafficability to their website and just see what they got because I thought it was awesome. I just thought it was an awesome technology. But I think to that point, I think that you know that's going to be like when the legalese of appropriate force is sorted out when it comes to technology, like what is appropriate force that can be used with technology. I think we're going to see more of this, some type of action element on a monitoring device, right? So you have a tower with, we do have we do have towers with sirens on them or audible. You're able to call down and say, "Hey, get out of the parking lot," or whatever, right? But I think a more physical type action, depending on where the line is drawn legally for some of these technologies. I think it's not uncommon. I don't think it'll be uncommon for us to see some of this stuff hitting the market. But not even just on security though. I think like fire too, right? Fire is a big one where we're able to monitor heat patterns, infrared, things like that. But you unless the plane or unless the drone has some type of device, some fire extinguishing device on it, you can just see the place burn down, right? And you can't do much about it, which is frustrating for everyone, right? Because we have the ability to see what's going on and what's happening, but we're unable to get the ground teams in place, in time to stop more damage. But um, you know, being able to kind of operationalize some of this monitoring stuff and get action to pair with monitoring, I think is going to be big, and I think we're going to see more of that in the future. Even emergency services, being able to, we have OnStar as a service now, right? Which you get in a wreck or something like that, and you can hit the OnStar button if you're overturned in a vehicle, God forbid. and they can, help, talk you through the issue and get emergency service to you. But I don't think it's too far off that we have, robots and drones assisting as first responders, not just on the police side, but on the emergency services side, fire safety. It's good. I mean, a lot of those organizations are under resourced and under manned right now. So I think investment in that area helps everybody.
Yeah. Um, the other one I want to say that was also kind of really cool to see too as well. Some brands, it looks like I'm seeing a lot more companies bringing their non-traditional or maybe household name brands. They're bringing more of their business line in towards security. So, like, I'm going to put this in the category of surprise, like surprises. TP Link had their Omada and their Vigi. I'm probably butchering both of the names probably. VIGI. God, it sounds like Vigor or something. One of those AI bots that you hear in movies that took out people. But yeah, I was a little surprised on see that brand. I was also kind of surprised to see a couple other IT brands on the show floor. So that was a little bit interesting in itself too as well.
Yeah, I mean,
And
it was an interesting show from that perspective. There was a lot of kind of brands that you don't traditionally see at ISC West there with
yeah,
security systems products, and you're like, interesting. I didn't think you guys played in this space, but you guys are here.
yeah,
Okay.
and to tie it back to your what you're talking about earlier, some of these brands are historically isolated out and everything. No, but they're making a showing and foray into security and public safety, and this collaborative effort that you're talking about earlier. That's kind of what's cool. So, like for example, Carbine is a great example of that. I know them from the public safety side of the house mainly because I've been working on next generation 911. And so, having them there, I wish I got to stop by the show floor booth, but, it was amazing to see, them present and in full force.
Yeah.
And that was like, okay, that's kind of cool. I had to go, that was kind of cool. I wish I had more time to, stop by the booth and say hello and, see if I had any friends there. But, this is kind of your point where you're seeing a lot of technology going into different places and where it's going to be useful to help from a not just from a security perspective but from a public safety perspective. That was really cool.
Yeah, and it's much needed in my opinion. I mean, I think Carbine is a perfect example. We had a great meeting with them, at IC West, and I think that just updating emergency services in general, whether it's through private, investment like what Carbine's doing, or just grants, public and private partnerships, I think is super important. And I think a lot of people, I'm gonna steal Carbine's pitch, right? Like DoorDash can deliver whatever food you wanted, whatever modifications you wanted to your, pad thai, right to your door. The DoorDash driver knows exactly where to go and has a route to you, right? Why can't the ambulance or the police officer or the fireman know exactly where you're at, right? I think a lot of people think that that's how it works. But the back end, and we've been in an emergency watch center, emergency services center, it's not always the case. They're having to ping multiple cell phone towers to try to triangulate you, and even that is not as accurate as an actual direct connect from your ESN number on your phone. Which exactly which phone it is, where it is in proximity to the tower. And so I think that there's just so much improvement that can be had there. And it's just great to see a lot of, like, to your point, a lot of technology companies coming in and addressing those use cases for the emergency services. And I mean, the price point for a lot of that is minimal when you consider the overall budgets of some of these agencies. I mean, the augmentation capabilities that you get for the price point is really hard to beat, from what I could tell.
Yeah, and I saw that technology. I think the one I think we're talking about the same one. It's where they can they text you a link
Yep.
basically. and
Yep.
then you click it, turns on your browser, and your browser trips on your camera, but it also sends out your GPS location, and you have a real time location on like Google Maps. You can see roughly where you are within about I think 100 feet. I think.
Yeah,
That's
I think they've got it even closer now. I think they've got it even closer now.
Yeah.
But you don't quote me on that. I could be wrong.
And
But,
I saw that technology, I think 3 years ago, maybe at the NINA National Conference, which by the way is coming to town in a couple weeks. By the way, for those of you who don't know, but the NINA National Conference, I think it was in Kentucky, Louisville, a few years back, and I looked at it. I was like, okay, that's very, very, very impressive. I was very thoroughly impressed by it. So that was 3 years ago at at the NINA National Conference. So one can only imagine how much the technology has grown and evolved in the last 2 or 3 years. So if they gotten that down to even within 50 feet, that is huge. I
yeah,
mean,
absolutely.
huge, huge improvement.
Yeah.
So
And then having the first responder, like for example, like somebody's having a medical situation and you being able to load in all your, like if you're allergic to penicillin or you're allergic, you have drug allergies or you have something, and you pre-build your profile. So when you call, through the Carbine link, the first responder can actually understand exactly what the patient is going through, right? And so they can pull it up on their phone, see what the initial report is, get the patient's profile. Of course, the patient has opted in on this, right? There's no privacy violation because it's a patient opt-in. But
well, in emergencies, you're usually waiving privacy at that point. You don't care. You don't
right,
want to die.
yeah, yeah, exactly,
To hell with
exactly,
your confidentiality. You're going to die.
right.
Like, save me. I don't want to
Yeah,
die.
save
And not
me.
by first one. I don't want to
Violate
die a
HIPAA,
second tier.
please. Yeah. But I mean, it's good for any information you can give a first responder, to help them prepare for the situation they're about to walk in, whether it's police, fire, EMS, is always beneficial, right? So, and then I think what I really thought was awesome about it is that it records everything too, and then it has a transcriber, right? It can transcribe multiple different languages. So, you figure there's a lot of people in the United States. Some people don't speak English. Some people are visiting from other countries, tourists. They call 911. The system will automatically start translating after 6 seconds, right? So, and I think they have 50 different languages they can translate, and it's gonna, they're gonna iterate, and get more under their belt. But I mean, I think that that level of capability is something that I think a lot of people think we already have with a lot of our emergency services, or people don't even consider, like, well, wait a second, what if you're, in, Fisherman's Wharf in San Francisco, and it's somebody from Germany who doesn't speak English and they're calling 911 because there's a emergency happening. Like, how are they, like, are we gonna wait to get a translator on the line, while someone's having a heart attack? Like, that actually doesn't make any sense, right? So, I think that there's a lot of capability there. Really cool to see too, right? Really cool to see it. We got a demo from Carbine, great demo, and definitely appreciated that. And we saw a lot of other companies out there too doing similar stuff, really trying to boost and solve some of those use cases for emergency services. So excited to kind of see where a lot of that stuff goes, because I think there's so much potential in that space.
Yeah, and like I said, I agree with you. There's just so much, potential. It's just everything is just coming together, converging. And if I remember correctly, too, that platform also has texting capabilities on a single pane as
Yeah,
well.
yeah,
So
yeah,
that's very helpful, especially when you're in a situation where you can't talk, but you need to, like, listen, or you can respond through text and quietly respond to stuff like that. So again, a lot of cool stuff. And remember, I saw this technology in action 2-3 years ago, so I only can imagine how it matured uh
yeah, yeah.
in that time frame too. And oh, I remember too, it was also SMS, WhatsApp, and I think SMS and WhatsApp, I think, was the two platforms that supported out of the
Right.
box. So
Which covers quite a bit of most cell phone users in the planet,
yeah,
between WhatsApp and SMS. I mean, you can pretty much cover most people.
Yeah, exactly. So that was just, like a cool, uncool. Anything else that caught your mind? Because like that was some of the things that just stood out to me the most.
Well, the after parties were
Oh,
great. I mean, admittedly, I'm an old man. I turned in early one night, and I still feel smoked. I mean, I only went out 2 nights. I did a 50-50 where 2 nights I stayed in to get some sleep, and 2 nights I went out. And I got to tell you, every year they get better and better. The sad part is we didn't get to do any karaoke this time around, but just means we're gonna have to karaoke harder next time. Um, but the I guess the social aspect of ISC West has always been great. It's been fun. This year I feel like it was just nonstop.
yeah, I felt like this year there was just way more going on. Like I just felt consistently busy. Like I never made any of the major like after parties. Like last year I made, several of the major after parties. But this year, like I just felt like I was slammed. I think the
Yeah.
earliest I turned in was like 1 a.m. I think this year. But consistently I was hitting 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning and then up by 7:30.
I could have been out all night if I had wanted to go that route. There was the social aspect of IC West is always great. It was. I felt like I was running from social event to social event to social event. And I was just like, wow, like I still got. It was like 11 o'clock. It's like I still got 3 more events I supposed to go to engage with some customers. I'm like, this is crazy. There was just so much going on.
Yeah, it's like Monday. I was like, I got in Sunday, went to have dinner, by myself because I got in late and everything like that. And then Monday was speaking, party, 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 meeting, party, meeting, party. Tuesday, meeting, 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 party, NPS and stuff like that. More meetings. Wednesday was some show floor. I think that's when you and I hung out the
Yeah,
most.
yeah,
But then we were supposed to do a lot of recording, and then we got pulled into like a 3 hour meeting with Andrea.
yeah, yeah. Good old Andrea, gotta love her. Andrea gets invited to everything, so which she then graciously extends the invitations to us, and it's like, wow,
Yep.
she's a good person to know. So, and then it was just so much going on. I will say the one thing that really kind of irked me, the reception and the Wi-Fi in the on the
Oh,
show floor was just it was I don't know, maybe I don't have all the information right, maybe just because there were so many vendors there showcasing that they were just sucking up all the pipe there. But like the reception was bad like on the show floor. It was hard to get a signal out.
yeah, I think they just needed some cows, the selling wheels. I think they needed a few
Yeah,
cows in that space. I would also say, because it's like, the density in that area was just so much.
yeah,
To the top of discussion, they had, fire marshals kind of panicking and, having to step in. Like, when's the last time you've heard a show where they planned something and then fire marshals had to intervene in the middle of a show
yeah,
at the very beginning? I've never really heard that because most shows planned, with a certain percentage of, margin and everything like that. And here they are, they're exceeding that margin by a long shot,
yeah,
which
yeah,
tells you,
absolutely.
something is really, really up.
Yeah,
uh,
don't get me wrong. I'm very happy that many people showed up and people were engaged and engaging and interested in the
yeah.
technology and all that. That's all positive. It just was annoying for us, right? We're trying to record, we're trying to go live, we're trying to find out where each other were on the floor. Yeah, come to this booth. You know, I'm
Yeah.
already, I've already walked away, and then the text message finally comes in 5 minutes later, and it's like, oh, wait, no, I'm over here now. No, I'm over, so it was a little bit of musical booths there for a bit, but
Yeah, it was like that with your friend from Google, I think, right?
yeah, yeah.
We had to cross paths several times because they kept moving and we kept moving and missing them.
We finally caught up with them, but it was it, and that's part of the conference life too. But definitely wish that I think if that hadn't been an issue, I think it would have been just that would have been a perfect conference.
Yeah. But yeah, like when I used to do E3, that was always the big problem. Like so much to the point I started whining that you needed to put cows because I couldn't even get text messages out in the like convention center. That's how
Yeah.
bad it was. And how congested it was. And this is what early 2000s. So, no doubt the bandwidth capacity has, increased, but dang,
I
30,
mean,
36, I think that's what 36, no, 34,000 people. And it was congesting still at that point at the Sands. So,
yeah.
you know, I think that just says something that, the attendance was way more than they actually expected, especially like I said, fire marshal stepping in, shutting down an elevator, trying to making sure people are going through. That tells you a lot. They
Yeah.
are,
Yeah.
fire
And
marshals don't want to do that unless there is something,
yeah,
concerning.
unless there's a serious safety concern, which there was. I
Yeah.
think everybody was like, yeah, there's nowhere to go. Like we're literally stuck on an escalator. And if you guys haven't been in the Venetian
Sands. Yeah.
sands, like those are, it's not like a small escalator. This is a very big, almost like two-floor escalator that we're talking about. So I mean,
Yep.
this is Las Vegas. There's conferences every week, every day. Vegas is built for the trade show, built for the conferences.
Yep.
And so if a Vegas fire marshal is stepping in and saying, "Hey, we gotta restrict the flow of movement right now because we got too many people here. Like we have a trampling issue, we have a potential fire issue." Um, it's a big deal, right? It's a big deal because Vegas is built for this
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, and I'm thinking of the show floor pattern. Like that means the side corridor that we typically use, that you and I like to use, it was probably congested. But then you're also talking about that side loop, where it all goes into A, B, C, and D. Those are ABC hall, that one. So that means all those doors must have been just completely congested too. So that means and not just a doors, like a series of doors, and they're all just bottled up like crazy.
Yeah,
So that just that says something to me a lot on that side of things, because that means you know it exceeded the it exceeded the best case scenario on traffic
yeah,
and,
yeah.
and bringing people in. So hats off to Sia and hats off to Reed for pulling off one amazing show.
Absolutely. Yeah,
I
it's a
don't
great
know.
show.
Yeah, I don't know how Nicole and I think it's Mary Beth how they do it, but they did it somehow.
Yeah, I mean, they pulled it off. I mean, it's a great show. Absolutely. Hopefully you guys got the link for the complimentary floor plat pass. Sorry, can't talk right now. And hopefully you guys got to take advantage of that and walk around and see some of the stuff that we saw. But yeah, overall, I mean, I'd give it a solid A, potentially A plus. I mean, for as far as trade shows, I mean, it was everything that you'd want. Good customer engagement, um, good product showcasing, great sessions, great networking, after the fact and before the fact. Um, and then just a lot of great conversations, a lot of business development. Everything you'd want in a trade show. I mean, it definitely delivered on everything.
I'd probably give them a solid on the line A minus. The only thing I'm going to be dinging them for is the Wi-Fi
The Wi-Fi, yeah.
and
I mean,
the cell phone
that
reception. There was just not enough bandwidth for that
It
density
wasn't.
of
There
people.
wasn't. There definitely
And
wasn't. I'll move it down to an A. I'll move down to an A. Fix the Wi-Fi, you get an A plus, right?
yeah, exactly. I think if they actually, uh, I'm in the boat of you don't. There's no such thing as an A plus. It's an A. That's the highest you can go. So,
Right.
for me, it's just the smallest little ding I would do. It's just we just need more bandwidth, especially because someone like you and me, we're walking around with a cell phone and a smartwatch. That's already two IP addresses used right there. Now,
Right.
if assuming everyone had one of those, and not people carrying like a personal phone, that literally is anyone can be taking anywhere at least two IP addresses these days to possibly four or five or six. If you had like a laptop in the back every so often, waking up to ping or something like that. So there's
Yeah.
like a ton of network traffic that it was not accounting for, and that's not just including all the vendor devices too as well. That was also taking up
Right.
bandwidth too as well. So that's just one heck of a implementation that I don't envy any network administrator having to figure out how do I get that kind of density in that space.
Yeah, definitely a lot there to contend with, given the circumstances. But yeah, I mean, I think, and I recommend anyone who was on the fence. And the funny thing too about the show is there's a lot of people who didn't show up either. Like a lot of guys that we typically see there weren't able to make it. But even so, I mean, while that's unfortunate, right, for various reasons, some guys just budgetary restrictions, some guys just scheduling restrictions, and totally understand that. That's part of this too. But I think despite that, we had the turnout that we did. I think that's just such a positive sign.
Yeah. And I'm looking forward to seeing what next year is because I think what's going to be happening is a lot of the lessons learned. Like, honestly, last year I felt ISC was already back
Yeah,
in the sense of
yeah,
pre-COVID. And then here this year, we just jumped another 8,000 people on
right.
day one. And so the 34,000 number day one means that number could potentially be climbing higher, like 35, 36, 37, maybe 38,000. Who knows? But, the think about it, because people were still registering the day of, is what I heard. Like,
Yeah, there were still people registering day of. There was people were getting complimentary passes out still. So
yeah,
I think I was there on the floor 3 days, and every day was packed for the most part. I mean, there was a ton of traffic all 3 days. Normally, like what I'll see is like day three, it slows down. Friday, it kind of tapers off. Like there's just people are packing up. People are kind of like they're tired, right? They're tired, and people are going home. But this year, not the case. I mean, it was pretty much a packed house all 4 days. Again, great sign, and I think I'm looking forward to next year. I really am. I think there's going to be some great stuff to see out there. Lots of good showcasing, lots of good networking opportunities as always. So I'm hoping more you guys who some guys who weren't able to go this year for whatever reason, you're able to show up and we can do more engagement because it's definitely a great show.
agreed. Totally agree. And, I think the cool thing is it's only going to get better at
Right.
the rate we're going. It's actually it, Alan is probably the same way as I am, but I'm burned out from Vegas from all the conferences that just go there. You just name it.
Absolutely.
I'm like I could easily spend 2 months there if I attend every single conference there. Like this year, I'm not at the NAB conference, which usually typically happens after ISC West. I didn't go last year, didn't go this year, but I do pick and choose which conferences I go to Vegas, and this is one of the short list conferences
Yeah.
that I go. So, take that as maybe a glowing endorsement of why I go. It's because it's a very very well done and produced show.
I will say this, just some travel tips for anyone who hasn't been to Vegas during a conference. I recommend taking taxis, not Lyfts and Ubers.
Ah,
Taxis are always available, and you don't have to wait. And they know there's a thing. There's a little trick about Vegas. A lot of the Lyft and Uber drivers aren't from Vegas. They don't really know their way around. All the taxi cab drivers have been driving the back roads, and they know which parking garages they can cut through to get you where you're going. They're not tied down to a route on an app. So um, I would just recommend taking taxis if you can. Um, Book a reservation and then book two backups just in case
ah,
because things happen. So if you no show to two, nobody cares because there'll be people who'll take the seat. Um, but if you can't get into the spot that you wanted to get into, at least you have two backups, right?
yeah.
And preferably you book three locations that are very close to each other that you can walk to. And whichever one opens up first, you go in, right? So
Kind of like your dinner at Aria.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
It was in the middle of nowhere, and I think that was the night you retired early.
yep. I was like, yeah, I'm out. I'm out. Saving my energy for the floor.
Yeah.
And then there is kind of there's kind of a competing thought process on the hotels. Um, you know, I think both strategies are sound in my opinion. So I've already been to Vegas 4 times this year. We're in April, so you break that down once a month. I've been in Vegas for the last 4 months. I've been in Vegas for 3, 4, 5 days. So I've employed both strategies quite a bit throughout the last 3 or 4 years with all the time I spent in Vegas. But some people say stay off strip. I did this year for ISC West. I stayed on the courtyard, off the strip. A couple reasons. One, there's not a lot of foot traffic. There's not a lot of activity. It's quiet. The cabs, it's easier for them to get to there where they need to. They just zip off the strip and you're to your hotel within 10 minutes. You're not sitting in strip traffic, which can take a long time depending on what time of day or night you're at. So there's that strategy. But then there's also the stay on the strip, which you can walk to everything. You're close to everything. Most of the events are on the strip, whether it's a happy hour or the conference. So plus there is the aspect of, if you need to get up to your hotel room to get, take a call or, send out some emails with some peace and quiet, you can just zip up to your hotel room pretty quickly, right? So I think my personal opinion, both strategies are great depending on what you're looking for. I don't.
I
I personally don't go with one or the other. It just depends on how I feel at the time or what's available because I typically have to book last minute. So whatever's available, I found a way to make both work. But definitely, if you can book early, book early. That'll tell you that. If you know you're going to go to a conference and you know it's in Vegas, book as early as you can because
yeah,
they fill up quick.
yeah, I did the rental car strategy again this year. I think the worst I got was that day when we went to the Aria together to
Yeah,
drop you off.
we
I
got
think
we
that
got
was that
stuck
was
in the
that
garage
was
there
the
for a bit.
worst. That was the worst. But at least the nice thing is your phone got charged in that time.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So,
All right.
I think you just got to plan. When you go to Vegas, you got to plan on what you're going to do. There's been times where I've rented a car in Vegas and it's worked out great because I've had to drive to multiple different customer sites that some are on strip, some are off strip. And so it made it easier. Other times when I know I'm just going to be in kind of the general strip area, I just don't even bother with the car. I just jump in a cab and go on my merry way.
Yeah, I think for at least for me, the rental car strategy has worked me pretty well because it's allowing me to go pretty quickly from point A to point B and everything.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Any final thoughts? I think we're hitting almost like an hour 20 this year. Yeah, we're almost an hour
Yeah.
15 right now.
Oh, final thoughts. I definitely recommend next year coming to the conference if you didn't get a chance to make it this year.
Yep.
If you missed it this year because of whatever, sorry we missed you, but I definitely think you should invest in the conference and invest in the relationships. And then you get to see a lot of cool technology like the paintball marking thing. I mean, come on, that's awesome, right? But I think it's just a great way to kind of get a sense of where the industry's trending. And I've never met anyone who's gone to ISC West and been like, oh yeah, I didn't see anything new or exciting there. I didn't see anything that really changed my thinking on how I might want to approach a problem. I've never heard that. Things I've never heard from ISC West attendees that. So I think at the very least, you get some perspective and get some visibility on some great technology, and then you make probably some lasting friendships and relationships while you're there too. So definitely recommend.
Yeah. My thoughts is that this year, simply, I think it's just a validation of my thought process is that, convergence is happening. Like whether you like it or not, you can fight me on it for all I care. But even if you beat me up and leave me bloody bruised and dying in an alley, convergence is still happening. So I think, whether you like it or not, you either get on the train now or you're gonna be left behind. That's just how I'm looking at
Yeah,
it.
totally agree with that.
Um,
Totally
and
agree
I
with that.
and I think the other thought process too, that I would highlight too, the relationships matter. Like build those relationships because you know at least for me, me going to a physical security conference, yes, I as a cyber person, I do feel completely out of water because it's not my typical, world. But, it's always stressed the importance that being there, being able to serve as that translator between the worlds that we sit upon is even more important than ever because I'm seeing all the technological advances just being on the show floor, you know, me putting on my red team hat, just looking at all that stuff. And I just see, yep, I have a concern on that. Yep, I have a concern on that. Yep, I have a concern on that. And having that lens and being brought to the table just really just makes me think about, what could possibly go wrong?
Right. There it is. There it is. Our famous last words, right?
Exactly.
So no, yeah, I totally agree with that. But yeah, I mean, looking forward to more ISC West in the future and more karaoke.
Yes, and Sandra, we're recording you next time too as well.
Right. You're not gonna escape it.
Anyways, all right, folks, that's it for this week. Next week we have a really cool session planned. Al and I think we're gonna be talking next session on Monday. The future of physical security. Who will own that responsibility? Is it the chief security officer or is it the chief information security officer? I think that's what we're gonna be talking about next. Thanks for also listening, and we really appreciate everyone. Oh, and next year, by the way, point out, come and say hi. I know I see the stats on who's listening. Yes, I know we're just barely crossing like double, if not triple digits, but or at least as someone could have said, "Hey, I listened to you on the podcast," so
Yeah.
we know you're out there. So
Promise we don't bite. We don't bite. We're friendly. Feel free to come say hi. We love talking to our listeners, so it's all good.
yeah. So, all right, folks, that's it for this episode. We'll see you next week. I'm Josh.
I'm Al.
Yeah, well, take care, guys.